And I think at the same time...
So now we have two people here who are saying it's Donald Trump's fault that someone shot up an ICE facility.
Nobody is saying that.
You literally said that.
Listen, let me finish.
And then you agreed with it.
You want to know what I said? I said Donald Trump created this environment over the past decade. You sat here and said, I need to take responsibility. I'm a 22-year-old YouTuber. You hold me to a higher standard than the man that
I'm
we
holding
just
you to your
listened
standard of your punditry.
Donald
Your
Trump was
punditry
just
is that
vomiting
Trump's
vitriol out of his mouth about how the other party is weak and evil. And he just said the party of hate, evil, and Satan. You blind yourself to that, and you're focusing on a 22-year-old YouTuber.
So that was my friend and yours, meidastouch contributor, founder of Mockler Media, Adam Mockler, delivering the most brutal debate and rhetorical beatdown of MAGA goon Scott Jennings, the smuggest, most condescending MAGA goon in all of live television, and that includes Fox News. We've seen Jennings get triggered and humiliated multiple times, and we love covering it here on this channel because he loves to try to trigger the libs, and when the libs trigger him, like Catherine Rampell or Mockler, it's really a sight to behold. That was absolutely brutal, and there's more where that came from. But before we unpack all that, if you end up liking this video and you want to support the channel, please be sure to hit the like, subscribe, and alert bells before you go. All right, friends, one of the things I like to do here is celebrate the success of people in the space, peers, friends, people like Luke Beasley and Adam Mockler. We covered an appearance by Mockler on CNN just a couple of days ago where he humiliated Ted Cruz's sidekick, Ben Ferguson, who's almost as annoying as Scott Jennings, but nowhere near as iconic, right? Scott Jennings has become a household name for being the anti-Jessica Tarlov, so the conservative on CNN. But unlike Jessica, Scott is just smug and almost always wrong on the facts. So to see Adam do this is really awesome. Like as a friend of his and as somebody who just is a fan of that sort of content, it's really awesome. So got several clips here of this debate, which gets pretty heated. We'll go to this one.
Yeah, Donald Trump has done this with a few people. He directly calls out their name online on his Truth Social, and then within days, you see them either targeted, their show gets pulled off, they get indicted. And when it comes to Eric Siebert, you can sit here and argue that, Trump had nothing to do with this, but it's so clear that he was putting his thumb on the scale when he fired Eric Siebert, and then, 6 days before the statute of limitations are up, this new federal prosecutor is rushing this through. And I agree, we should let the process play out. It's fine to let it go through a grand jury, but can you at least concede that Trump was putting his thumb on the scale when he posted Comey's name, 4 days before Comey was indicted?
I don't think anyone is disputing that he thinks James Comey
Did he put his thumb on the scale,
is a bad person who deserves to be investigated, and if a grand jury so chooses,
did Trump put his thumb on the scale, though?
He has never denied that. He's been very clear about it, has he not?
Isn't this all?
So you can see that Jennings does not want to answer that question. Of course, they're referring to the prosecution of James Comey, former FBI director who was corruptly fired by Donald Trump in May of 2017 during Trump's first few months in, because Comey would not cooperate with Trump's corrupt aims. And ever since then, he's been high on Trump's shit list. Trump has publicly and privately for years, as both the sitting president in his first term, then as a candidate for office during President Biden's term, and now as the sitting president now, publicly and privately demanded that Comey be prosecuted for amorphous crimes. And as we discussed in a recent video, Trump is actually setting the stage for the judge to toss this thing out for malicious prosecution. I don't know if that will happen, but Trump is certainly making it easier with all of his invective, his public invective about James Comey. And so good on Mockler for pointing this out. Like, hey, won't you admit that this really is a political prosecution? And again, you can see Jennings never lacks for confidence. And I want to say two things about Scott Jennings. I don't like him, but he is smart. He's clever. Now, he's being the cleverest MAGA Republican in a debate is usually like being the world's smartest flat earther. Unfortunately, the facts are so often against you that your cunning and your cleverness really doesn't matter, and that's what we're seeing here with Scott Jennings. But even the confidence, he's always got the smug smile on his face. He loves to try to trigger the libs. He can't even meet Adam's eyes. He has to look down. He certainly doesn't like James Comey. Yeah, but that's not what Adam asked about. So see how he refuses to engage directly? It gets worse.
And
It's
can I
not
just point
good.
out,
It ain't good.
Ahmed asked for them to point out either any example of Joe Biden doing this. No example. Scott Jennings said, I don't know anything. That's always your fallback. Donald Trump directly asked Pam Bondi.
There was a story.
Do you remember when Biden said, hey, Merrick,
Merrick,
can you go after this person? It didn't happen. You have no example.
And also,
it's literally in the news. I'm sorry. I know you're like 12, but it happened.
You're a smart dude.
It's like it happened.
It was never reported. And also,
it was reported.
No, it was never reported that he told Merrick Garland to indict.
And
that was never reported. We know that. Okay. And also, I just have to say,
the reporting said or not?
Yes.
No,
there was a story.
The reporting said that he told Merrick Garland
the point of the story was that Joe Biden was mad and he was angry, and the point of the story was that it would get out so that they would feel pressure to move on it.
Wait, and he told who?
It was done in the reporting.
Okay, I just think again, like
the point was it for it to get out.
It's super. Listen, I think Alyssa's point is.
So there is no evidence, none, zero, that President Biden ever publicly or privately tried to pressure Merrick Garland to prosecute or not prosecute anybody. And what Scott Jennings is doing is saying, well, there was a Politico article which reported that President Biden was pissed off at Merrick Garland. So what? Unless President Biden publicly or privately pressured Garland by ordering him or saying, hey, you need to do this, or hey, you don't need to do this, or hey, I'm telling you to do this, or I'm telling you not to do this publicly or privately, the way that Trump has done with his attorneys general, like Jeff Sessions and Bill Barr and now Pam Bondi, unless there's anything like that in the Politico report, it's irrelevant. And there is nothing, which is why Jennings is getting triggered and trying to obfuscate. Well, Biden was pissed. So what? Presidents, Trump and Biden, Obama, Bush, it doesn't matter. They are entitled to their opinion. They're entitled to be angry about somebody being prosecuted or not prosecuted. That's fine. And they're entitled to even voice that privately to people who are not in charge of making the prosecutorial decisions. It's okay for a president to bitch to his chief of staff like, God, Merrick Garland is screwing this up, or God, Pam Bondi is screwing this up. But what's not okay, what is inappropriate, what is unethical, and what is corrupt is for the president to publicly or privately pressure the prosecutors, the attorney general, deputy attorney general, people in charge of making these decisions to do something or to not do something. President Biden never did that. Donald Trump has repeatedly done it, dozens of times. And so Adam is right to point that out. Jennings is, of course, outmatched on the facts, and that's why he's getting pissed.
I want to get when he was running for president.
He had a trial.
Can anyone point to one single example of President Joe Biden, privately or publicly, in any documented evidence of our reality, directing his Attorney General Merrick Garland to prosecute his political opponents, let alone protect his own son, who got indicted under his watch? When did
what?
Show me.
He pardoned him.
Show me the answer to when did he direct Merrick Garland to prosecute Donald Trump?
I want to hear an answer to that.
He publicly, in a Politico story, was reported to have been fuming to anyone who would listen that Merrick Garland was not moving fast enough.
Did he tell Merrick Garland?
He publicly was fuming privately? Is that
No,
what you said right there?
he asked for evidence of it. He was in a Politico story. There was reporting on it.
Did he tell Merrick Garland?
I don't know what he did.
Prosecute
here we go.
these specific people?
And by the way, I don't know a living Democrat
Hold
that
on,
thinks
wait,
Merrick
wait,
Garland.
Actually, I think this is super important. So are you suggesting that because Joe Biden was angry about something but didn't express it to Merrick Garland, that constitutes
You don't know
pressure
whether
on
he
Merrick
did or he
Garland?
didn't, but I know it was put in a story.
But do you know?
This is what you guys just said. He says things out loud.
Scott,
Joe Biden said things out loud or had it reported in a Politico so people would hear it.
I think it's a really simple factual issue here with this idea that Democrats, Joe Biden did this to Trump.
I didn't bring up Joe Biden. I'm not the person who rejected this.
But listen, where's the proof? Don't we need proof?
To be honest,
Exactly. You do need proof, and you don't have any. I mean, you hear he's stammering. Notice, by the way, in the last clip where he insulted Adam, I know you're like 12 years old. Yeah, it's embarrassing, bro, that you're getting your ass kicked in a debate by a 12-year-old. Adam Mockler's 22. But by your own insults, like you're denigrating this man who's humiliating you on live TV. So I'm not entirely sure that that's the own you think it is. But again, well, I know it was reported that he was upset. Again, he's trying to move the goalposts. Nobody's saying that Biden wasn't upset or that Biden nor Trump have every right to be upset. They do. What they don't have the right to do is try to use their authority to pressure a political prosecution or to prevent the prosecution of somebody for political reasons. They have no right to do that. That is a corrupt abuse of power and a violation of the post-Nixon reforms that we have instituted in the expectations that we've created between the White House and the Justice Department. Trump is flagrantly violating those things, and President Biden never did. President Biden is morally superior to Donald Trump, and anyone who tries to pretend otherwise, particularly on this issue, is destined to lose that debate. So the topic then shifts to the notion of violent rhetoric and aggressive rhetoric. And again, Adam just kicks ass.
Right here.
Yeah, I'm pretty tired of conservatives gaslighting about the current political environment and Donald Trump's rhetoric when all of this escalation can be traced back to his entrance into American politics. His claim to fame was saying that Obama wasn't born in America. He was the first presidential candidate to have his crowd chant, "Lock her up," about a political opponent. You can bring up the insurrection. Even in the past few weeks, my home city of Chicago, he posted a photo of Chicago being invaded by the Department of War. So the broader point here is Donald Trump endlessly deflects and tries to blame it on the other side when he is the one responsible for amping up the tension in America. And I've spent all of my formative years throughout high school, throughout college, looking to the president, who I'm supposed to be able to look up to, and seeing somebody who's trying to place blame on the left, who's amping up the rhetoric constantly. And yeah, it's not good.
So you think it's Donald Trump's fault that a deranged leftist climbed up to the top of a building and shot up the ICE facility, not once now, but twice in Texas?
I think it's Donald Trump's fault that America has gotten to this heated place. I think that
No
that
responsibility for the radicalization on the left that's causing this violent
That
outburst.
29-year-old is radicalized by online communities and online algorithms. I'm not going to blame that
Did you read his
directly on
note?
Trump, but he was caught in a lot of online video game algorithms and all these communities. Donald Trump,
But it's Trump's
10
fault.
years ago, Donald Trump amped up the tension in America. It's
So he ran
obvious.
10 years ago, and this guy then 10 years later, somehow you're connecting. Can't you just take responsibility for it?
Oh, he
On
should-
the
wait,
left.
me?
But let's not do the
Can't-
he has to
can't-
take responsibility because he's a
can't-
Democrat.
can't we
I'm a
just-
22-year-old YouTuber. You want me to take more responsibility than the president of the United States?
I want you to understand.
I'm a
that-
22-year-old
I want
YouTuber, dude.
you to understand that we are in the middle of an epidemic of left-wing violence. They're attacking ICE. They shot Charlie. It's happening all over the country. We have these Free Palestine people running around trying to burn down the Pennsylvania governor's mansion. On and on
Then
and
maybe the
on.
president-
It's
I
not
have
Trump's
data.
fault
The president of the
that the
United
left
States-
is radicalized to the point of saying, we're done talking and we're going to start shooting.
Scott, the data
is
indicates
Scott,
otherwise.
is Trump amping down the tensions?
Amping down the
Yeah,
tensions?
is he taking the tensions down? Is he trying to do that?
I think he's mad that his friend got murdered, if you want
Okay,
that.
look,
The job of the
Okay,
president
so
is to
no.
tone down the
All right,
rhetoric.
go ahead, man.
Sorry.
Yeah,
Okay, so let's just focus on this for a second. Again, great job by Adam. So Scott's really stupid. Scott's saying, okay, so Trump said something 10 years ago, and then 10 years later, this person is radicalized to attack an ICE facility. No, that's not what Adam is saying. Adam is saying starting, now starting and stopping 10 years ago, Donald Trump became the most influential person in American politics. And from that position of influence, both as a sitting president and as a candidate for president, Trump has dramatically, unprecedentedly increased violent rhetoric in the body politic. There is no politician, none, certainly not on the Democratic side, but I would argue not even on the Republican side either, who is engaged in more aggressive, violent, intemperate rhetoric than Donald Trump. That is Donald Trump's fault. And again, it's the Uncle Ben from Spider-Man approach to philosophy of power. With great power comes great responsibility. If you polled most people about that sentiment, most people would say, yes, of course, I agree. People who are in positions of power, they have greater responsibility to wield that power responsibly. Jennings would even agree to that, except unless you apply it to Trump, and then he'd be like, well, that's different. No, it's not different. The president of the United States is the most powerful and important person on earth, which means he has infinitely greater responsibility to behave himself and to use temperate, mild, moderate, responsible rhetoric than Adam Mockler or anybody else, myself included, than Scott Jennings, than Charlie Kirk. And this is where Jennings will inevitably, always, the destination leads to one inevitable place. He will always lose that debate because we all understand that with great power comes great responsibility, and Trump is violating his responsibility every damn day. And as I think it's in this clip here, Ahmed Baba points out, left-wing violence is a thing, and it should be condemned, of course, but right-wing violence is even more prevalent, according to libertarian right-wing institutes like the Cato Institute, as well as the FBI, even the FBI under Trump, which is why they were forced to ultimately try to scrub the information.
Number one, on the Trump front, we need unifying leadership from the top. You didn't hear Obama, Dylan Roof shot up a black church. He's saying Amazing Grace. He didn't say, I will go after my enemies, number one. Number two, we see the data indicates otherwise. There is left-wing violence, right-wing violence. The Cato Institute, far from some far left liberal bastion, said 63% of the murders from political terrorism between 1975 and September 11, 2025 was from the right.
It's true. So yeah, listen, I just want to say there are more clips where they talk about other things, but this really was a masterclass performance by Adam. I'm proud of him as a friend, as somebody in the space. He's becoming so incredibly successful, and he's so damn good at this. And to watch him humiliate Scott Jennings like this and trigger Scott Jennings, who again isn't just a MAGA Republican, but is in many ways the embodiment of the ultimate smug MAGA goon, was incredibly satisfying to watch, and I hope it was for you as well. In the meantime, let me know what you think in the comments.